I had a list of questions since I got a camera. Had a list of questions that I want to ask you. From your perspective about being married. So, number one, first one on my list is what does intimacy mean to you?
Intimacy means to be intimate with someone, to get to know them. Um, I've heard a pastor say intimacy. So allowing a person to see your heart, your emotions, your feelings,
Mm-hmm.
um, and who you are. Um, I know you and I have this discussion a lot, and I think men and women get to that point of intimacy in different ways. I think because men are visual, because we're physical beings, it comes from a physical standpoint. And I think I would say for women, it's probably more of a mental standpoint. But either way, both of them are trying to get to a place of openness and understanding so you can get closer to a person.
So, I agree with you. But like how important is it in marriage is the baseline question. Like how um is it a top, like one of the pillars of marriage, like communication, and do you think intimacy is, or is it a tool to open up these other or support these other pillars in a relationship?
I think it's a straight priority.
That's a straight priority.
I think it's I think it's more than a tool because if you really think about intimacy, it leads to all of the other things um, that you're talking about. Like once you know a person better, then as far as relationships are concerned, you understand how they feel about finances, how they feel about children, how they feel about day to day
Which
tasks.
is a good point, because I think when you're dating, that's not the things that I would speak for me. I'm not speaking for anybody else, but I don't feel like that was the thing that I knew to look for in dating. So you end up getting married to someone, and you guys have children together, and then that's when you find out what's near and dear to that person. Like, I really wanted my kids to be raised this way, or I really, you know and then you start learning these different things about why that person is like that, and you start learning a little bit more of their background. So sometimes I feel like in dating, the one thing that I did not do is I did not experience intimacy in the dating world. You know what I mean? It was pretty much just the relational part of it. Because then, as you kind of hung out with that person, you start to see things like we don't even have the same values, or you know what I mean? Like on the first date, you might not be talking about what is like, well, when I have kids and I raise kids, that might be a more of a heavier conversation, but it's so important because if you want to have a future with that person, then you're finding out down the line, like, you know, I don't even know. And by that time, you and I've had this conversation before. We've already experienced, we, like the Bible say, we got to know each other. So, you've already engaged into relational, and now it's like this uncomfortable.
But here's the thing about that, right? And I think that's why it's so important to guard who you are intimate with,
Okay.
because it worked out in our situation because I think we were friends
Before.
before we became intimate.
Okay.
So I got to know a little bit about you as a person, huh?
He got to know a lot of bad before.
I wasn't gonna say all that, but
Well,
okay.
yeah, it was. I
And
mean,
you
let's
got
be
to learn,
honest.
and you got to learn a lot about me before we had a space of intimacy. Um, of that level physical intimacy with each
Right.
other, right? You know, so
But not to cut you off, I did get to observe your core values. I got to observe you as a father before we ever, you know what I'm saying? So, in a sense, I got to see what was really important to you. What was, hey, this is non negotiable. When I have my boys, I have my boys. You know what I'm saying? So, I got to know that about you outside of a, you know, we were just friends basically.
but I think the difference is that because I have been in plenty of other relationships where,
Plenty?
well,
Okay, keep going.
other relationships where the intimacy part happened sooner
Yeah,
than getting to know that person, and
right.
then realizing that me and that person didn't have a history. You know, because when you think about, and I'll talk about the aspect of intimacy, which is sex, um, which, you know, for a man, I think that's the best way, or the, I don't know, maybe the quickest way to get a man to open up emotionally, like to really really see his scars. I think, and that's a shame because I think there needs to be other ways to get to our heart, and um I think, you know, as a man, I'm trying to work on that more, to where I'm just open, and it doesn't have to be from a physical, you know, standpoint. We have a lot of deep conversations about my
Right.
past and about,
Right.
you know, things that I've dealt with, and that opens up, you know, a level of intimacy,
And it
you
gotta be a
know.
two-way street. Like for us, we want that part of you. Like I feel the closest to you when you trust me with your heart. Like when you put it in my hand. But that process of you putting it in my hand is got to be a place of trust, right? You got to know whatever you're saying to me, I'm not going to judge you about it. You got to know what you're saying to me. It's not going to leave this conversation. You know what I mean? Like it's already maybe some shame because when I'm sharing things with you, you know, I have a level of shame, but I'm in a trusted space, so I can tell you just about anything. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you this. But um, what if a man is in a situation where he wants to be, intimate in that way, but it's just not, I don't know if I can trust, you
But I
know?
think, and maybe, I mean, as we're talking through this, shoot, I'm getting healing on my own, or just getting revelation on my own. I think about it, but as I think through it, I think most men, um, we build that trust more from when you trust us with your body, and
Mm,
maybe that's a false thing. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking through this in my head now.
yeah.
Um, when we have to get to a point, I heard somebody on TikTok say this, young man, I don't know his name or anything. Was just kind of scrolling through, but um, you know, women, we always talk about women needing to know their value, right? And not to give themselves so easily, you know, to a man, but a man needs to understand his value as well. You
Correct.
know, his value outside of his manhood, and
Right.
his value outside of, um, what he can give a woman, you know, physically, you know,
Right.
financially, whatever. What is that value? What is your purpose? What is, who are you? You know,
And your
and
rightful place. We are in a generation of more and more less fathers in the home, or more or less, fathers being present, less elders, both men and women, to um, pass on that baton. It kind of works two ways too, because you have a generation of older people that show you how to take trauma. You know what I'm saying? Like what goes on in our house stays in our house, or uh, that's just a man. Different things that has happened. It wasn't okay when it happened to them, but how they kind of just move ahead. So it kind of goes both ways. But we also lost like the knowledge and wisdom from a grandmother. You know what I'm saying? Like you know,
But as a man, I think it goes deeper than that because when I think about as a man, like all the older men in my life always would tell me, like if you hurt yourself, suck it up, don't
don't
cry,
cry.
don't show emotion.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, society, like
Correct.
being out in the neighborhood, being out
Looked upon as
in
weak.
different places, yeah, emotion comes across as weak, and I know that. I'm a part of a men's group, but in that men's group, we had a conversation and we were talking about emotion,
Yeah.
and that emotion isn't a bad thing. It's actually a point of strength. Like
Right.
the fact that, sometimes I can let you know my emotion in a healthy way.
Right.
I can cry in front of you or I can
Right.
and trust you enough to where you're not going to take that and use that against me. Um, lends to a deeper level of intimacy with us. And so when I think about sex and how it's set up, like if we're all brought up, or most men are brought up from kids saying that, don't show any emotions, don't show any emotion,
Right.
sex becomes that gateway into that for us because that's probably the only time where we'll let our guard down emotionally
Because y'all not thinking.
because we're not thinking. Yeah. You know what I mean? But then after the fact, it's we back to being man, being
Right.
whatever. And I think what I'm learning is, and again, I didn't learn this into our relationship. I think it needs to be in reverse. We need to be able to have those emotions, share our emotions. I think be guarded. I don't give everybody that privilege or that nuance. I'm very selective on what I share my emotions about. I think that's wisdom,
Yeah.
and that's discernment. But being more articulate on this is how I feel, this is why I feel, being more honest with ourselves, um, about our strengths, our weaknesses, our fears. Um,
And you got to add healing in there. Like our greatest quest, job, whatever, is to just be the best version of ourselves, which entails healing. So sometimes you come into a relationship and you don't really know you have all this baggage until you get into a relationship, right?
mhm.
You in the streets, I could be the most beautiful woman and all of these praise, praise, praise.
She
Oh, you're
is.
so pretty. You're
You
so,
are.
whatever, whatever. But then you get into a good relationship and when you really trying to build something, looks don't do nothing, for that. You know what I'm saying? When it's getting to the meat of something, when you get ready to go through something, you want somebody that's made of something to be on that battlefield of life with you. But in order to be that person, I have to continually reach for healing. Like I personally make it my own business aside from you. Like early in marriage, I'm praying like, hey, come get your boy, like Jesus. I'm in my prayer closet like this is a lot. I don't know what to do with this. And God never spoke back to me and said, this is what you should be, saying. God always showed me. So that I learned that lesson the very hard way. But he just always showed me, and that was always my point or my place of work. Like, aside from you, take you out of the view. What did I say? What did I do? How did I respond? And I didn't know any of those tools prior to us getting married. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I don't make mistakes and that I'm not, I'm just this perfect person. But when I look back, I had some fault in there too. I was wrong too. You know what I mean? And so it's been a constant, getting to know me, going, not trying to make it a spiritual thing, but going to the Father and just getting to know me. And by me getting that aligned and right, it's allowed me to love you in different ways without injuring you. You know what I'm saying? Bringing my baggage, because like you said about being, about intimacy and, being more open and knowing that I'm not going to use it against you, like there's a reverse to that. You know what I'm saying? That because you're talking to a hurt person, women don't think that they could be abusers. Newsflash, we can be. So, and we don't think that we are, but we are. Sometimes in every story, there's a hero and there's a villain, and sometimes we the villain. I know that's harsh. You probably ain't ready to hear that, but if you're using your words, we can bring up a thing, we can edify a thing. There's a reverse to we can bring a thing down. And so, with our mouths alone, we have the power to, didn't even say a cuss word, but we could chop a man to nothingness. You know what I'm saying? And so, with having that type of power, we have to be careful because when he wants to tell me something, and Sean has told me plenty of things that, I just was speechless. Like, I don't even know how to respond to this. I don't even know what to say to this. But it was a delicate moment that I could have did something that could have damaged us in our marriage at that time. You know what I'm saying? So, when a man when you're giving me your heart, I am careful with it. You know what I mean? I am protective of it. Like, you can come to me and tell me anything, and I'm going to be a keeper of my husband's secret. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to use it to blast it and be like, oh, yeah, because remember that time you. But as growing and then healing my own trauma, you are not that man. You know what I mean? Or past relationship, like something to look like something that you experienced, and you're not that guy. You know what I mean? So, all that to say, healing is a part of it too. Um, I was in conversation with one of my sisters this week, and she was saying something that was just so good. Like, and I shout out to my sister, my sisterhood, my group of women. They strong, they're beautiful, and I mean, I just learned so much from this good group of women that I'm surrounded by. But she was just speaking personally about something that happened in a previous marriage. She's now married again, and she was saying that something happened in her new marriage kind of looked a little bit like something that happened in her prior marriage. But man, my brother, he the bomb.com. He not like whoever this other dude is. And so that's what we were talking about, is just seeing things that remind us of something else, and a situation with another person, but not, your man is not that person. But she went through a healing process, and she was able to articulate to me like, hey, my other, my ex-husband, he was this, but my husband now, no, he not that guy. And so took a lot of healing through that. You know what I'm saying? Like, to be able to recognize this is not that. And so, what she was sharing was an intimate thing. I mean, and if she didn't handle it right, I mean, it could have been a deal breaker for the current marriage that she's in. So I am a big advocate, as you know, for mental health and wellness. And so my biggest job, biggest task is gonna be me. And that's hard. That's a big job. Sometimes I don't even like me. So when I wake up, I'm like, oh, what you on today, girl? So, it's work that always has to take place. But doing that is so it pays off so well because I get to see it in us. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lesser version of me would probably be arguing with you, or not trying to not even trying to hear it that day. But because I'm constantly putting in the work on myself, and I mean, honestly, therapy, you know what I mean? Like, I know that's not a thing that, we in our culture, it's not a thing in our culture to we think of people that go to therapy are crazy. But man, therapy is whew, you get tools, you get better understanding, you get boundaries, you get things that you can't organically heal yourself. You need something outside of you to help you. And that's what I love. I mean, this is way tangent, way off topic, but that's what I love about our marriage, is that a good relationship will make you reach for the best version of you. Like, I tell him my personal thing, I will share this one personal thing, is I always tell him I want him to be proud of me. Like, I want him to look at me and be like, babe, I'm proud of you. you know. And so that's what motivates me. My audience is my husband and my children. And so between between those two groups, like I'm like, come on, you got to be the best version of you. And so I want him to be proud of me, being like, that's my wife, like I want that feeling, and he gives me that feeling now, but I mean, I just want it at the highest level that I can be, you know what I'm saying? So that had nothing to do with intimacy, but
Yeah, right, right. What's your thought on intimacy? Is it a priority? Is it a tool or
you know what? Again, just growing in marriage with you, I didn't